Okay, wonderful.
One person left each one of our members.
Okay, so I'll start the Sully district, and we'll go page down, right?
Yes, sir.
I want this. Okay, and so, okay, there you go.
All right. Well, I'll start with just a very brief introduction of myself. I'm Battalion Chief Randy Benner with the Fairfax County Fire Department. I've been with the fire department with Fairfax for coming up 27 years finished. Been in the fire service for 37 years. And I'm only 25 years old, so I haven't figured out the math yet.
We don't want
I've been in the Sully district, serving here approximately 5 years as a battalion chief. And thank you all for the invite to be here this evening and discuss our fire department that I'm very proud of.
So which one of the Sully district fire stations are you with again?
So I'm housed out of Station 15, which is Chantilly. So for those that may not know where the station is, if everybody knows where the Anita's is. So if you know where Anita's is, we're directly behind that.
Right near the Hankish Auto Complex.
Correct. And we'll show a little bit later kind of what all stations serve the Sully area, Sully district area. Very brief here. This is our mission statement and our vision statement from the county. We've revised this a little bit over the years, but our mission still stays the same: to provide the highest quality services to protect the lives, property, and environment of our community. And our vision is still dedicated to being a premier community-focused fire and rescue department, ensuring a safe and secure environment for all.
I want to make sure I get you on the camera. There you are now.
Oh, yeah. I've got a face for radio. I apologize.
I understand. I've heard that comment many times.
I'm sure you have. So this is a quick brief by the numbers about the fire department itself. Recently, we've added another station there at Station 44 off Scotts Run, which brings where actually the battalion or the deputy chief is right now, which brings us to a total of 39 fire stations. The public safety headquarters, which is directly across the street from the main government center building. The training academy, which is just down the street from there on West Ox Road. The logistics distribution center, which is down in Springfield. For anybody that knows where Washington Gas is down there, that's where our logistics warehouse is. And we have 2 apparatus repair shops, and each of them have a storage complex to store some of our reserve apparatus. One is located beside the Fire and Rescue Academy on West Ox, and the other one's located down in Springfield as well. We have approximately 1,360 uniformed personnel. Out of that, we have 183 civilian staff and 362 operational volunteers, which you have quite a few in the Sully area as well. Again, back to the apparatus itself. All 39 of our fire stations have a paramedic engine, or as we call it, an ALS engine.
So what does the ALS stand for?
So Advanced Life Support.
Okay, thank you.
So we are all emergency medical technicians. So every one of us is a basic EMT, emergency medical technician. And then out of that 1,360 uniformed personnel that are all EMTs, we have a large portion that go and become paramedics, which raises it to an advanced life care. So all 39 engines are outfitted in that way. We have 43 ALS transport units, which actually that has changed. We're down to we're getting close to half and half. So recently, we could touch on that a little bit, where we've recently changed our system to mirror all of our surrounding jurisdictions with a 2-tiered base medical system. And that means that we have a BLS transport unit, an ambulance, and a medical transport unit, a medic or paramedic unit. And in simplest terms, if you can think about the way the stations are throughout the county, every other fire station typically is outfitted one or the other. So for instance, 38 down the street at West Centerville, we have an ambulance. The next station over is Centerville, they have a paramedic unit, and vice versa down through the line. Your service still doesn't change because we still have a paramedic on every one of the engines that comes along. It just gives us that flexibility at peak times where we can have the paramedics assigned to an advanced care call while we have the basic EMTs to a more what we'll call routine emergency. Along with all those units, we have 2 hazardous materials responding units housed at Fairfax Corner Station 40. We have 14 ladder trucks throughout the county, 6 tankers. Currently, there's 3 on the north side of the county, 3 on the south side of the county. And I'm politicking for eventually hope to get one out this way because you have a large need as you continue to grow, specifically off the Bull Run Post Office area. You have 8 rescues, heavy rescues. As we're speaking, we were talking, we have a heavy rescue going on, a technical rescue up at the Capital One building. So we have those rescues spaced out throughout the county so that we can quickly have a heavy rescue, a technical rescue, or a hazmat rescue to the scene very quickly. We also have 3 ALS specialists that we just started. They went live about last week. We took 3 individuals that were paramedics already from a already held position in the office, and we've moved those to a chase unit type of vehicle where they're in a buggy similar to mine, where they can now freely move throughout the county whenever the high peaks occur, where we're seeing maybe on our heat map or our medical map where we have the greatest need. So for instance, right now we have a lot of units out on emergency incidents up in the 1st Battalion, Herndon area where I just came from. So we could have one of them move up into that region to help offset some of the other units being out.
So you're from the 2nd Battalion. Tell us where the battalions are. So what does that mean?
Sure. I'm not sure if I have a map in with this PowerPoint itself, but I can quickly go over basically as you scan through to see if we do have one. If not, that's okay. The way we're positioned is we have the 1st Battalion, which is the Herndon, Great Falls area of the county, and portions of Reston. The 2nd Battalion is over at Tyson's Corner area and Scott's Run. The 3rd Battalion, which is the battalion I'm in, which is here in Sully, constitutes this region over to Fair Oaks. We have the 4th Battalion, which serves down Mason District area. We have the 5th Battalion, which is further down Fairfax County Parkway. So if you think like Pohick Road area. We have the 6th Battalion, which is Route 1 corridor. And then we have the 7th Battalion, which is serving the rest of the Fair Oaks area. They're based out of Fairfax Corner. And Battalion 7, the chief officer there also routinely responds into the easternmost part of Centerville. And then we have the 8th Battalion, which serves Etzel Road area. And those are the 8 battalions that we have throughout the county.
So we have Flores. Is that in 1st or 2nd?
So Flores is in 2nd Battalion, and well, it's kind of right on the line between the 1st and the 3rd. So Flores Elementary, if you're familiar with that, and Frying Pan Fire Station 36, that's still part of Battalion 3. Once you cross over, like around the toll road area, that becomes Battalion 1.
And what about Fair Oaks on the police station, fire station, right on 50, right on West Docks Road?
So that's where the deputy chief is housed out of. I tease him now. He's actually, Chief Cochran's getting ready to retire in June. That's where I used to be housed out of when I first came into the 3rd Battalion. With our shuffling of units, we put the deputy chief out of Fair Oaks Fire Station. And when we did that, we realigned how the battalions lined up. So Station 21 at the Fair Oaks Police Station currently sits in the 7th Battalion. It used to be the 3rd, but now it's the 7th.
When I lived in Greenbury, that was our fire station.
Yes, yes. So I still, again, that's still portions of that are still part of the 3rd Battalion, which was the battalion that I serve. So Greenbrier Shopping Center, all of that is still an area that I serve, along with Station 15 and 21. It's kind of right on in between the 2 of them.
And then so that's the Chantilly Battalion and as fire station, and there's the one in the Centerville Fire Station.
Right. So Centerville is Station 17. Actually, was just ran a gas leak down there prior to coming to the other one.
Over that one.
Yes. So Centerville is also part of the 3rd Battalion as well as West Centerville.
Which one is West Centerville?
So that's Station 38. So that's down off of Westfields and Stone. So if you go down Stone and O'Day,
Okay,
O'Day Drive
I know
is
where
where
that
it actually sits off.
Okay, gotcha. So I'm gonna go to the next page.
Sure.
I assume that the dividing lines between battalions is clearly outlined on the map someplace.
Yes, and I can absolutely share that with you, and I apologize that we didn't get that into this PowerPoint, but I can absolutely share that, yes.
I'm just trying to think, okay, how would they divide the?
But like,
Yes.
we were at the box, at the food line off of McLaurin Road and Centerville Road. And there's a big fire truck there. We talked to them when they were buying the shop. And they said, oh, we're the fire station for Dulles Airport.
Yes,
He says, but we on occasion support Fairfax County when necessary.
yes, they do. So the great thing with our system, and I know we're off on a tangent, which I love. We have the questions thing at the end, and when you think of something, throw it to me. One of the things that I absolutely loved coming down here, I'm from Pennsylvania originally, Harrisburg, and when I moved down here, father's a retired firefighter as well. When I moved down here, what was glaringly evident with this region is how well everybody worked together and how organized it was as a system as a whole. And when I researched that myself and asked a lot of questions on how did we get to this point, was Air Florida, which we unfortunately just celebrated that anniversary just a few days ago or a week ago. During Air Florida, no, I'm going way off on a tangent, and I apologize.
No, please.
To the listeners.
I was here during that happened.
Okay, so when Air Florida occurred, when all the units were coming from Virginia, from Maryland, from DC, resources were requested, and the communication was lacking between the different jurisdictions, different states, as well as what we actually called the units. So when, we'll say, for instance, Maryland calls for a rescue unit, we would send an ambulance at the time. Washington, D.C. would send a heavy rescue, and Maryland might send one or the other. So we needed to come together on what are we going to call the things when we ask for it, and how can we all communicate together. So with our radio systems, we can now talk amongst all the different jurisdictions by simply switching zones. So I can speak with Montgomery County directly, DC, Loudoun County, Prince William, Fairfax, and out of that tragedy grew this great partnership between all the regions to where now routinely it's for the layperson, when you call 911, I know if my family calls 911, they don't care what it says on the side of the apparatus. They don't care which uniform they're wearing as long as they're coming to help. And that's what we want. And I think we have pretty much achieved that through this region. So case in point, on my way here, I was on the phone with my counterpart in Prince William County. He was calling. We routinely talk at least once a week to catch up because we run together so often. He was running a call in Fair Oaks from Prince William County because I was on that gas leak up in Herndon, and the battalion chief from Battalion 1 was helping Loudoun County on a fire. So we're kind of like, shuffling the deck. But the great thing is because we all operate seamlessly, you wouldn't know it. When we show up, we all talk the same. We use the same radio channels, just a different frequency or a zone. And when we ask for resources, we know exactly what we're getting. And the protocols that we use are pretty much seamless across all the jurisdictions. So it makes it that much easier.
Somewhere I read that there was a fire in Baltimore, and when the fire apparatus came from outside the city of Baltimore and tried to open up the fire hydrants, they had different tops.
Yes.
And the wrenches that one jurisdiction used would work with the other jurisdiction. And somebody says, hey, let's standardize this. And so I don't know if it was the turn of the last century or something like that, but they finally realized they needed to have a standard hydrant.
Yes, so we have the national standards for the actual threads and couplings that our hoses use. So that's national. Again, the COG, Council of Government region that we have here is very unique, I can say, to this area. because there's nowhere else in the country that operates the way we do at the level we've known for so long. Many jurisdictions are starting to go that way. Again, sadly, it always takes tragedy as themes for change. September 11th kind of proved that, where communications again and calling for resources and needs from both the police side and the fire side, those communications had to get better. So out of that tragedy led other jurisdictions to look at how they were operating so that they could run smoothly. And again, we kind of set the standard for that in this area already, thanks to, sadly, Air Florida.
So I'm familiar with the Dauphin County and the others, their 3 Mile Island.
Yes.
Tell me what your experience was up in the capital of the great Commonwealth of Pennsylvania.
Well, we're definitely going to lose your audience, and I do appreciate all those that are hanging in with me with all these calls that I ran. What's that? Yeah, so we'll be here all night. I can tell war stories. You are?
I was at 40 Newton Gap.
Oh, okay. Well, then you know. You were a little further away, though, than I
Further away, I wouldn't.
Yes, I'm
I
very
actually
familiar
not
with
yet
that.
because I wasn't living there.
Yeah.
I lived off of Union Mill.
Oh.
Or Union
Deposit?
Union Deposit, yeah.
Well,
Which is.
I'll tell you, a small world. I used to ride my bicycle over to Union
Oh,
Deposit
did you?
all the time.
I lived in the,
so-
right off, as soon as you come off the interstate, make a right. and you're not-
I know exactly where you are.
I need to park.
So
50 years ago.
this is great. I just love how small a world it is. So Dauphin County, like you said, is where I'm from. That's Harrisburg is encompassed as part of Dauphin County. Being a young volunteer firefighter up there is where I got my start under my dad. It was again, I stayed as a retired firefighter out of the city of Harrisburg, and also volunteer chief when I started in Lawton was the area in Dauphin County. I wasn't quite old enough to be a certified volunteer when TMI happened. And for those that never heard of TMI, definitely look it up. 3 Mile Island was a nuclear reactor plant. It has since been shut down. There's actually I believe it's Netflix has a series. They started with Chernobyl. And I know this is way off the fire department side. There's a Netflix series called Chernobyl. And I implore everybody to watch it because it's scary how realistic it is.
Was it on HBO first or something?
I believe so.
Yeah, okay.
And then after that, they made one real stories about 3 Mile Island. And they actually interviewed people from the area. They interviewed some of the workers that were there that day. And you find out a little bit about what actually happened and kind of what wasn't said to the public at the time. Sadly, everybody's, wants to make sure that they're doing everything right, but things might get covered up.
In this case, when the president of the United States went to visit TMI, he was a nuclear engineer. I mean, you don't expect a nuclear engineer to be president, but he went there. I understand he asked specific questions that only that person with that background could answer, like Ronald Reagan or somebody else had gone before that. They wouldn't have had, but he.
You're absolutely right. And they actually talk about that in that series. So that's why I implore everyone. It's like four little mini series or 4 little sessions. Definitely watch it. But yes, so to make this story even longer, I grew up, like I said, just outside of the city limits, would ride my bicycle down to the city, chase the fire trucks all over when I was growing up, ran my first fire when I was 2 years old. And sadly, that was a fatal that I got to stand at the fence and watch my dad go to work. So it's definitely in my blood. And 3 Mile Island happened, and he rushed us with one of his coworkers over the mountain up to Halifax County. And we stayed up there on a farm for a week, maybe a little longer than a week, while he and his partner from work, another firefighter there at work, they went back and forth to Harrisburg, not knowing what they might be absorbing, inhaling, ingesting from 3 Mile Island. So again, super proud dad moment. And then, mom and my brother and we stayed up there with the other firefighters' family. Fast forward, young volunteer firefighter, we do our live burns sometimes on 3 Mile Island. There's a burn building similar to like we have at West Ox Road, not quite as nice as the one we have now. And we would actually do our live burns right there in between the towers at 3 Mile Island. Fast forward even further, I became a industrial firefighter for a paper mill, Camp Hill, and we would do our hazardous material training at 3 Mile Island because we could use realistic hazardous materials. So I had a healthy dose of radiation from there, I'm sure. I teased growing up, and I teased my kids that they didn't need a night light because I glowed at night. And again, small world being what it is, I came to Fairfax County as a now a little more senior firefighter than a lot of my counterparts in the recruit school, and joined the International Rescue Team. Spent 25 years as part of the International Rescue Team. Loved every minute of it.
That's the Fairfax County Rescue.
Fairfax County
International
Rescue.
things like that.
Yep. So we're one of two that go international. It was Miami-Dade when I started, and then they lost the contract due to funding issues and personnel issues. So LA County picked it up, and so it's ourselves and LA County now are the only two that go international.
There's a plaque at the training center over West Ox that Sully District Councils paid money for in honor of your deployment sometime in the 90s.
Yes.
I don't know if you've seen it, if anybody
I have.
sees it, but this organization, because that was part of Sully in the 90s, and we thought it was worthwhile to put that up.
We truly appreciate it. I mean, it's true honor. Every time we go out the door, again, I say we, because I'm still part of the Fairfax County team here, locally. I've hung up my wings for the international missions. That's a young man's game. And I put my family through enough turmoil over 25 years of it. But fast forward, where that story was going was I was already glowing from 3 Mile Island, and they sent us to Japan for Fukushima, the earthquake, and obviously the radiation that came from that. So I teased that I was first one on that list because they said, well, he's already glowing. We might as well send him over there. So
my brother-in-law worked for a big electric company, and they had a facility in Michigan where they had problems. And depending on your age, you could stay in with a dose of weed. He was young enough that he could spend 10 minutes an hour. Older guys like us could spend 40 minutes an hour because we didn't have a progeny that we needed.
our life expectancy is a little shorter.
Yeah.
Yes.
But his goal was he would be there, and this is before the internet. So he bought lots of books and magazines to read because he had nothing else to do back then.
Right.
I'm glad to know that they report some radioactive gas was released a couple of days after the accident, but not enough to cause any dose above background levels to local residents. Highly highlighted here. There were no injuries or adverse health effects from the 3 Mile Island.
Right. Yes, and I've
So you
been
guys
hearing.
done good.
Yeah, I've been hearing that my whole
Put it
life.
on, well.
Yes. And again, apologize since we're so far off topic. When we were coming back from Japan, they asked a crew, flight crew, to volunteer. They looked for volunteers to come over because there was still so much unknown. So they said, we're not going to force anybody to fly over there, but we're going to pick up our team and LA County's team at the time and to fly them back. Who wants to volunteer? We had a volunteer pilot crew and staff that came over, and their first concern was, are you guys radioactive? And our hazardous materials technicians that are here from the county, they showed them that actually the radiation they picked up from the flight over there and back was more than what we got in Japan because of the heights that they fly. So way off topic there.
Let's go back to this, but that was really good. We appreciate that because that makes what we're talking about much more interesting than just by itself.
But I appreciate
Give
that.
you a more recent example, the example you gave about the inter-county coordination. I live over here in Virginia, and we had a house that caught fire. So I'm the president of the board of trustees, and I rushed over to see what the heck was going on, because they go right by my street. You could hear there was about, it must have been 5 or 6 trucks go by. When the first one goes by, I said, okay, something serious has happened. The second one got by, I go, something's really bad. By the time the 4th or 5th goes by, I get in my car and go. We had trucks from Centerville, from Western Centerville. We also had them from York,
Yorkville.
Yorkville, Manassas, and a Manassas team. So they're like 5 different jurisdictions showed up for that house fire. Fortunately, nobody was hurt, nobody was at home. The houses are close enough, but it didn't damage any house except for that one. But like I said, it was gratifying to see so many units would show up, knowing that a single house was on fire, knowing the possibility some other houses could catch fire.
Absolutely.
Being adjacent, we're only, 30 feet apart.
Yep, and that's what we're truly blessed in this region. Again, it's one of a few throughout the country that can even compare.
Yeah.
And like I said, most of the stuff started here with the way that we respond. And to your point, you brought up about Dulles. When I first started Dulles, federally, it was a concern of them leaving the property because obviously they're supposed to be serving the airport, and God forbid something happened there. Recently, their staffing levels and apparatus has been able to support coming off the federal property. And you will routinely see Tower 302, which is from Dulles Airport over in this area because it's a very quick and easy access off of is that Stonecroft Boulevard. They come right in the back gate. So to your point, I've been on the fires where it's been Fairfax County, Loudoun County, Prince William County, Dulles Airport, and the city of Manassas, all in the same incident. So that's 5 different jurisdictions, all working together seamlessly.
So does Fairfax City have their own fire? Or they,
Fairfax City does.
I thought so.
So they again, they're integrated with us. Some things that are completely integrated, other things are completely separate, but the way it's dispatched is from Fairfax County itself. They have 2 fire stations in Fairfax City, and my counterpart in Fairfax City, they only have 1 battalion chief. I tease him all the time. We're going to take over the city again, and I'm going to take his spot. He's a really good friend of mine. So yes.
All right. So anything here that's worthwhile?
So just very quickly, just so you know what everybody's tax dollars are paying for, and that you can be proud of is in 2023 we ran over 129,000 calls, 96,000 of those being for EMS, and over 155 working fires. And when I say a working fire, that means something more than food on the stove or kitchen cabinets. We're talking about a large loss of fires, sadly, but that's what we're talking about.
So what is the RIT?
So during that, whenever we have a potential for a working fire, we dispatch what is an RIT, which is called a rapid, basically it's a rapid response team or a rapid intervention team. So RIT stands for Rapid Intervention Team. They're designed for us. So we're going in to rescue you all. God forbid you need rescued. The RIT task force is there to rescue us. So if something
So
goes
the next
bad.
acronym, ROSC, Rapid.
So I'll make it really easy where it's basically we have been able to restart your heart and breathing. And what that entails, sometimes sadly, the outcome, we get them, an individual to start breathing again, or at least get their pulse rate again. And sometimes they still succumb to their injuries or their illness once we get to the hospital.
So what does ROSC stand for?
So you put me on the spot. I've got to think of it off the top of my head now.
Never mind. No,
I'll have to get back to you. It's
Let's-
spontaneous, spontaneous. Oh,
Maybe
sorry.
spontaneous combustion.
yes, no. Sorry, yes. I got so far off the topic, I've completely
Oh,
lost.
never mind.
But, yeah.
Okay, but you tell your battalion got less acronyms,
Yes,
more spell outs.
yes,
Okay.
yes. So one of our captains, he was having a good time. He's studying for the chief's test. So he was using a lot of acronyms. So I will talk to him about.
The other one is, when I worked for the Defense Department, we had a risk assessment team. And you can guess what our emblem was. A rat with glowing red eyes.
Nice, yes,
So you got a rat team here. All right, yeah.
yes, yeah.
Never mind. All right.
Yep. So ongoing challenges. I actually just met with one of the,
Return of spontaneous circulation.
there you go.
What's that?
Thank you. Return of spontaneous circulation.
Right, rather than combustion, spontaneous.
Yes.
During chest compressions generally detected.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Thank goodness for Google,
Okay.
right? Yes. So ongoing challenges. I actually just met with the Hunters Pond HOA this week because urbanization and density. We're having more homes built. closer together, and we're also seeing that we're having more homes built in rural areas, i.e. off the Huron Post Office. So that's something that now it's a new challenge. As I said, we've actually invited Supervisor Smith. God bless her. She went with us for a ride on the tanker truck while we were out there undergoing a drill. And I think she had a great time and really got to understand that challenge of providing water to some of these areas. And then when we talk about the urbanization and density, all you have to do is look across the street from here. I was across the hall with Supervisor Smith a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about how things have changed. They talked about how the police would ask if they could go hunt the deer across the street. And now you have thousands of people living right across the street in what we call a Texas donut, which is an apartment complex surrounding a parking garage.
Yeah, like there's one just north of the shopping center in West, on Route 50 in Centerville Road.
Yes.
You call that Texas Donuts?
So we call it Texas donut because they first appeared in Texas, the type of construction.
Yeah.
And we've mirrored it throughout the county and throughout the country for that matter. We're seeing a large portion of them up in Frying Pan area, which is also part of the 3rd Battalion. And then obviously you see them across the street.
Well, that way you don't see the parking lot. You see residential development and not the parking garage that would otherwise be freestanding and obnoxious.
Correct. And so for the fire department and fire service as a whole, that has, again, an ongoing challenge for us is how to combat fires in these types of complexes. And a current major concern is the EV vehicles. So the hybrid and the EV vehicles, when we get, we'll say a Tesla inside of one of these parking garages, inside a Texas donut, that doesn't go out because the Tesla takes thousands and thousands of gallons of water to keep it in check, and it still burns.
So really?
Yes, they'll burn for 24 hours. So we have to figure out how are we going to combat that while keeping the residents in that apartment building that's surrounding this parking garage. So we routinely run drills, we do tabletops and exercises to deal with these.
I have the new GM Ultium or whatever the new format they have. I have an electric vehicle, just got it this week. So hopefully it's better than the Tesla.
The Tesla, yes. Yeah, so as things improve there, we hope it improves on the fire safety side. But every time there's a new invention, it's a new challenge for us. So staffing and recruitment is the biggest thing. What's that?
Can we use foam roll?
So they actually say they prefer that we don't, in the sense of the foam definitely helps in that initial coverage. But because of the lithium-ion batteries, they will still continue to burn. And they've found through testing, water is the best thing to use to try to contain it. We're never going to put it out completely until the thermal runaway stops, which is part of the lithium-ion battery failures. And it's obviously cheaper to use water than hundreds and hundreds of thousands of gallons of foam. And then on the environmental side of it, is we're just complicating the issue. If we're adding now foam, that the EPA is going to get a little nervous if flowing that much.
These are fires that the car started, not that the Texas donut is on fire and ignites the car.
Correct. The car itself
Ignites.
ignites from a thermal.
Spontaneous combustion, ROC, so it's T.
Yes, there you go. There you go. Tesla, yes. So jumping down to the big one that I know I'd be remiss not to talk about is staffing and recruitment. That is by far the thing that's hurting or a challenge for every single fire service and police service right now throughout the country. We are challenged every day to try to find more folks to come into this occupation. When I started, as I mentioned, I started as a volunteer, became very passionate about the job and went that route. It's hard to maintain volunteers because of the workload on our current society, and then to dovetail them into a career service. So we're looking at other routes of travel as far as getting recruitment through high school programs. We still tap into the military a lot, and we also look at other jurisdictions. But we're all competing for the same folks, where when I first started here, Loudoun County was very small as far as the fire department. Prince William County was pretty much volunteers, and most of your surrounding jurisdictions outside of DC were volunteers. So we were able to recruit fairly easily to this region. Now, everyone is going with career fire departments because of the density population. And so we're all competing for the same people. So that is going to be a continual issue for us. And then aging facilities and capital. One of the later slides, you'll see some of the structures that fire stations themselves that are undergoing replacement or repair. The fire stations aren't getting any younger, so we need to be able to keep up with that. So those are funds that we're constantly looking at.
I watched two get built, one on Columbia Pike and the other was on Arlington Boulevard. And watched the two of them get built. It's been 10 or 12 years now.
Yeah. And then you add in Columbia Pike as a perfect example, Station 10, Bailey's Crossroad. I actually responded to that straight from being home from Haiti. Went right to Station 10 when it collapsed from the snowstorm. So that was an unplanned construction that needed to happen. And part of that is because of aging infrastructure. So that identified that Station 8, Annandale, also needed repairs to the roof because of that heavy snow load. So that all those unplanned for facility repairs and replacements, of course, hurts your bottom line, your budget for your planning for the other firehouses. Some of the accomplishments during 2023, we achieved accreditation through the Commission on Fire Accreditation International and the Center for Public Safety Excellence. Many of you may not know, or you may have seen in the papers, our fire chief is now in charge of the International Fire Association. So he is the fire chief of all of the chiefs. His service here helped to move him to that position. So I know he appreciates everybody's support from that. We created the 3 EMS specialists that I mentioned earlier that we can now position throughout the county. And we're hoping that eventually we can expand that program. We implemented a suppression quality assurance. QA is for quality assurance. That is something we were doing already on the EMS side. We're the first in the country, possibly the world, to ever implement something like this. It's where we never had a value to tug to how well were we doing as a firefighting service. How well were we getting the water to the fire? How quickly were we getting ladders thrown to the structure? All of those things that we would judge ourselves on. We didn't have a good baseline. We're the first organization that has decided to try to collect that data and see where we can make improvements. And it's already come to fruition on a few things that we've been able to improve. And advanced cancer screening. Personally, I can tell you, I've gone through it. We've offered it to all of our uniformed personnel and our retirees. The initial screening, we had over 300 people screened. And out of that, we had approximately 70 people that we found something. Thankfully, a lot of them were minor, and we were able to treat them very quickly and get them right back to work or to continue the retirement enjoyment. But we've also found, tragically, some that will be fatal. One of my best friends in the fire department, his diagnosis is fatal. And the cancer that he has will kill him. His family is having to live with that. And he currently is still working for the fire department so that he can build up a nest egg for his children and their lives as he moves forward. And again, it goes back to the passion that we all have for our job carries over to our families too. So God bless you all for allowing us and supporting the cancer screening, and we hope that we can continue that and expand on that over the years.
Those cancers as a result of firefighting?
Correct. A lot of those that we've been able to directly link to the fire service. And then the last thing that was on there that I'll just touch was the collective bargaining. You don't have to move it, but it's collective bargaining. The Virginia State recently adopted the ability for unions to have collective bargaining, and ourselves and most of the jurisdictions around here have gone through that process. So we've just completed that process, and the new contract went effective beginning of January. So we're very happy with all of that. Here we talked specifically about Sully. Approximately 10% of all demand for services in Fairfax County are within the Sully district. And the most demand for services in the Providence district.
What did Providence say about that?
So, so do you want to touch base on where Providence is for anybody?
We know it's from Fair Oaks east to almost to Tyson's development.
Right. So when you think about the population density now that's in Tyson's and the traffic that's on 495, you think about the number of incidents that we respond to there. Obviously, that's going to be a little more than the Sully district. But as we mentioned, 10% of the demand is here at Sully, even though we don't have all the high rises that they have at Tyson's. You do have a large, as we call it, bedroom community, as well as commercial community. And we've done a heat map with our new data collection that we've done that shows, and I've already known it, paying attention to all the calls that are going on, is this area in the morning around 9 a.m. is the busiest in the county. So it just tells you where the influx of people is coming from.
So basically, if we have 10% of all demand and the Sully district's 9.4, we're pulling our weight.
Yes.
Not above our weight or below our weight, just our weight.
And we're saying that's current, and that's only going to go up. So when we talk about resources needed, staffing needed, facilities needed, this area is going to continue to grow, and we're going to need to continue to expand.
The incidences are on highways or homes or
Everywhere.
just across the?
Just across, yes, across the board. That's incidents across the board. We marked down here the service for Sully are, as I mentioned before, Station 15, which is Chantilly, 17 is Centerville, 21 is Fair Oaks, 36 is Frying Pan, and 38 is West Centerville.
Okay. Are you aware, has anybody made you aware of new data centers going in?
Yes. Yes, so my counterpart I just talked to you about, Chief Ferguson from Prince William County. Obviously, it's all over the news of the new corridor going into Prince William County. Having lived through it myself, being from Loudoun County, it was Loudoun County with portions of Fairfax. We have now more coming down 28. Some of the places where some of my friends worked at, they're off EDS Drive. They're being taken down, and now the data centers are going in there.
EDS Drive. There's no EDS in it.
Right.
So we just call it.
Just EDS, yes.
Just plain old EDS.
Yes. So Ed is being replaced with data. So, data centers there, and obviously we see them on Route 50. And
The one that was just approved last night, right behind the auto park,
right behind the auto park.
three stories. It's 10 feet tall. Oh, we got ladders that reach that far.
Yes, the thing is that we will need more equipment, and that's and more training.
And more foam.
More foam.
28 diesel generator.
One of the things, hopefully I'm not speaking out of turn, but fans, ironically enough. Loudoun County bought a dedicated fan truck. We have two smaller trucks that kind of do two functions at once, hazardous materials and fans. What Loudoun has done, and Loudoun's been kind of on the forefront with the data centers since it's kind of started the mass population because of AOL. Obviously, we all know that. So Loudoun has been one of the premier departments moving forward with how to fight fires and deal with data centers. We work collectively with them, and now Prince William County is reaching out to us. So that was part of my conversation on the way here with Chief Ferguson is we're going to do a combined drill between Loudoun County, Fairfax County, and Prince William County, more than likely specifically on data centers. What we do.
Tri-County is talking.
Yes, we have to.
Yeah.
Because we're all going to be there.
When you say a fan truck?
So it's a very large, just think of a giant fan
Okay. So
on the
what's
back of the
fan?
truck, and you can position the truck or a trailer as close to the building as possible to evacuate the smoke and help to isolate it for us, especially in some of these larger buildings. 2020, here's a good comparison, and I really like this slide. I know for us, we only see a portion of it, and hopefully you all can see everything. The 2020 versus 2023. So you're talking during COVID and post-COVID. You see the incidents you would have thought during 2020, we'd have had more fire, EMS, and emergency incidents. We've actually increased since COVID to 13,000. Part of that is, again, folks were following the CDC on staying home, isolating, masking up, and we were able to mitigate a lot of the emergencies without having to take them directly to a healthcare facility, which of course helped the healthcare facilities. And fires, we've kind of stayed steady with the added infrastructure, the new technology. We're going to see that go up. Sadly, we're seeing in New York, they're having one lithium-ion battery fire a day that is significant, and many resulting in fatalities. Those are the rules.
Well, there was that fire in Brooklyn or Bronx where a guy was charging all these off-brand lithium-ion scooters in the house.
Yes.
And that wasn't a good idea.
Yes. So again, we as a county and as a fire service, but specifically as a county, have to continue to support our codes departments, our fire departments, our fire marshals, to support codes that will limit how big a fire can get when it's caused by some of these batteries. Case in point, you mentioned the Bronx. For anybody that's been in New York, you know that it's compact, to say the least. The apartments themselves are very small. Many of them, again, infrastructure issues where there's no sprinkler systems. Doors are routinely wood or failed completely in stairwells, where they will have a fire in an apartment. And if you own a scooter, which a lot of folks in New York City love to ride, the little scooters that we use obviously in the Mosaic District a lot here, where to get around, they'll use the scooters, and you want to charge it, but you're not going to leave it out on the curb in New York City. You're going to take it up to your apartment that's on the 18th floor. You're going to use it in the morning, so you put it by the front door, and you plug it in by the front door. The fire occurs very rapidly, and if you look up any videos of scooters, lithium-ion battery fire, it's so fast that there's no time for the folks to get out of the apartment, because now it's blocked by this ensuing fire that continues to grow rapidly, and the doors fail, it's into the hallway, and off to the races. And that's where they're seeing a lot of fatalities. So the EV and lithium-ion battery is going to be continue to grow as a problem for us. I ran one of the first incidents in the county with the cell phones. If everybody remembers back with Samsung and the cell phones, I have a Samsung here, where I was in a student, I believe he was at Centerville High School. I don't want to speak out there, but I think it was Centerville, where he had it in his pocket, student, and it exploded in his pocket. Thankfully, minor burns, could have been much worse. And now you've increased the battery size to the data center size, where it's an entire room or warehouse full of these batteries. That's only going to get more complicated for us. So continue to support good codes,
So
fire service.
there's a 5,000 number increase between 23 and COVID. And it looks like most of them were the EMS emergency, because it's now 13.7 as opposed to 10. So it's almost $4,000 increase there. And the fire non-emergency goes from, the non-emergency goes from 1,000 to close to 2,000. So those are the 2 points that have changed. And so all this stuff is non-emergency and EMS emergency health and non-emergency. What would non-emergency? I can see with the EMS emergency, but what's the non-emergency?
So lift assist. So that's a really easy one to pinpoint as an increase. I'm not speaking differently than anybody in the room here. All of us are getting older. And the great thing for Fairfax County is everybody's getting older and they're not packing up and going to Florida. We're seeing more and more folks staying here. And the reason why do you think everybody wants to stay here?
Good services.
Good services. You've got the best fire department in the world, right? Internationally known. You have some of the best medical facilities in the world. 3 major airports within a stone throws of each other. Great entertainment out of DC and Fairfax County and throughout. Wolf Trap. If I'm a retired individual, why would I want to go somewhere else where my services are going to be a downgrade from here?
One of our guys who lives out in Virginia Run has a house. He lives by himself. He says, well, I'm going to move to something smaller. And he realized with the interest rates as it would, he'd spend as much money on his new house or as he does in his house in Virginia Run. He says, fuck that, I'm just staying.
Right? Yeah.
Excuse me,
Yeah.
wipe that out the
Yeah,
record, please.
yeah. Excuse the language, yes, but
Excuse the
yeah,
French.
yeah, and so with that means we have an aging population. That means your emergency responses go up because as we get older, sadly, all of us need a little more help. And help is that non-emergency calls as well. We run a lot and we're okay with it, but it's part of our system that we've actually been able to build on, expand. Folks that have fallen down that can't get back up, like the TV commercial says, or they can't get back into their bed from where they were and they are struggling. We routinely run those calls. We assist, and what we've been thankfully able to have happen because of everybody's support in the county, and again, wanting the best services, is we've been able to task a few individuals to follow up if we have a routine call that continues at one, we'll say a residence. If we get multiple calls at the same residence for the same individual, we have a support team that will go out and see if there's anything they can do to help with their situation by either providing funding, providing guidance to get grants or funding to buy equipment to be able to support them. And we've seen the numbers go down as far as we're not going to that same house every day.
Well, I know personally in the last 5 years, 2 people of my age or older who died after falling in their residence.
But you're only 25 years old, so that's very unusual.
One guy came out of the shower, fell, and he was nude in his house for 2 days, a day before someone down the hall heard his cries. And another person, the daughter called the mother, and after a day of not hearing from the mother, they went down to investigate.
Hmm.
And these people had fallen in their residences. And the after effects of that day of being where they were, maybe their legs were broken or something like that, was enough that they could never recover sufficiently. But all right, sorry.
No.
Well, let's go down here. First do mobile app. Now, what is this?
So I was fortunate enough to be at the forefront of this application. We beta tested this app. This company approached us, partially because they knew that we were a large department in the region, and certainly they weren't hiding the fact that they were hoping to expand their program. The application is designed to assist our first responders on not only GPS routing, immediate routing, but it provided a way for us to input data for every structure in Fairfax County with hazards, best access points, routine emergency incidents, life hazards. So using our last example, if we have an elderly patient who is wheelchair bound in apartment 306 in this building, we can put that into the first due application. When we respond to that incident, it will actually populate up and we will be able to respond to that. It is the first application we've ever had in this region where it immediately gave us data for every structure in the county as soon as we turned it on. What it did was it would use already utilized platforms as far as Zillow, assessor data, some of the publicly open research, for structures. So every occupancy in Fairfax County shows up on first due and gives us at least some sort of data. That could be, this is a 3-story single family home. That was something that we would know if we looked on our maps, but as fast as we're moving in the county and building in the county, sometimes it would be a while till we would have to update that on a paper copy and then distribute it out to everyone. And then if you got there on your paper copy and said, oh, there's a wheelchair bound patient on 306, you'd write it on the piece of paper, and then good luck if you weren't on another call and somebody else didn't know that. This is, every firefighter has immediate access to it from their phone. It's a locked system, so you have to have access granted to you. So there's no fear of that.
Is this a third-party app that you used, or is it
Yes.
something internal?
It's a third-party app that was created to work in the fire service. And with the application, it continues to grow thanks to a lot of our input and things that we've learned through utilizing the application. In fact, one of the members that I asked to start this program with as an instructor has now been hired to instruct throughout the country on this program. So it's another tool that gives us more information to help our citizens.
I assume you're also a part of First End.
Yes. Yep. Capital improvement programs. So we touched base about the infrastructure. So Scotts Run, Fire Station 44, that's our newest fire station. Built on the east side of Tyson's Corner. If you're familiar with that area, the metro runs pretty much right across their back door. And that provided us the ability to get to Tyson's area, Dunloring area, Vienna area quicker than our old station of 29, which is the original Tyson's Corner fire station. Anybody that's been through that area knows how congested it is on any given day. For Station 29 to try to go eastbound on Route 7 to get to the other side of 495 during the height of traffic, it's tough. Going up into McLean, same thing, trying to get out of Tyson's to get up to serve McLean. So putting this Scotts Run in, this fire station supported that. And we're going to continue to see growth needed there as we continue to go up. So some of that stuff is in our codes department and in our fire marshal's office of when we put in the 50+ story high rises, what's the reflex time for us to get there and where do we have to put apparatus personnel? Tyson's 29, again, that will be because of the high rise structures that are now moving into that corner of Tyson's. Fire Station 29 will be enveloped and be part of that community. And I've seen a couple of diagrams of some of what that'll look, and it'll look more like a kind of a New York fire station and that kind of feel.
Wait till they put the casino in there.
Well, yeah, I heard about that as well. They moved from Reston to Tyson. So again, that's just more for us to deal with, more incident. Yes. So money. Yeah, support. 2018 public safety bond. That was for Mount Vernon Fire Station 9 to do some improvements there. Gunston Fire Station 20 down by the river. Seven Corners 28. That's where I started. That's currently under construction. They're moving along pretty nicely there. Fairview Fire Station 32. They're moving along. They have the temporary site identified for that. West Annandale Volunteer Station. I believe that's going to be a mutual agreement between the county and the volunteers at Station 23. 2022 public safety bond tentative. We see a couple here in the Sully area. Fox Mill Fire Station 31 is up off of Lawyers Road and West Ox. That is definitely needs improvement. We've outlived the capacity of it, and we're fixing it with a lot of Band-Aids right now. To put it mildly. So Fire Station 31 and as well as Fire Station 15 here in Chantilly, where I'm based out of. And then Oakton, Fire Station 34, that used to be our old hazmat station. It's kind of outlived its usefulness there and its current facility, and also looking at the infrastructure that's built around Oakton. That's going to need to expand. And then WellFit, that is our workout facility, our fitness for duty. It's our gymnasium. So all of that has been a huge godsend for our staff to make sure we're keeping in shape and monitoring our folks so we can prevent injuries, or if they have minor injuries, we can prevent them from getting worse and be able to return them back to service quicker. So that's another one of those cutting edge systems that we have here in Fairfax. And in the 2026 public safety bond, tentatively, that'll be Fire Station 35, like I mentioned, down Pohick. And then again, back to Sully area, Station 36 up at Frying Pan.
Okay. Louis, do you have anything you want to write for us so that we can respond? I'll look at the chat in case you have a chat for us, okay?
That was quite interesting.
It was very good. Very good.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you for
That too.
Yeah.
You don't think about or know that kind of stuff unless you sit and listen to a presentation like this, just how much trouble you guys run into is people just don't get out of the way of a fire truck and you're driving?
Well, again,
Big issue, right?
again, not to go back to coming here. I was on my way here. I got hit out for that gas leak I mentioned down in Centerville.
Yeah.
And so I was coming across the bridge here on my way to the station. And I started heading south on 28. And with the new smaller mixing bowl that we have there at 66 and 28, it does add some confusion for folks. I understand that part of it. And then you add my lights and siren to it, which I'm very careful going through there. And I had a medium-sized bus, travel bus, that was in the far right lane, decided he needed to get off on the left exit for 66.
Because he decided he was going to take the hot lanes rather than, or whatever, it was going
Yes.
one of the other ways, and it's not.
Correct. So he decided to go across all four lanes to the ramp right in front of me,
Yeah.
to where I thought he was sliding because it was a wet road. And I said, this is not going to end well. And thank God it did. And they made it to the ramp, and I was able to slow down enough that I did not run into them. And then it is definitely a concern. And we mentioned about infrastructure, and that's a thing that we will continue. Part of the facilities will be like, why do we need another fire station here or apparatus here? It's because of the traffic.
So years ago, we learned that right up here at the Chantilly Fire Station at Route 50, that you folks can control that light.
Yes.
I know that I was commuting on bicycle up from Westfields to my house near Chantilly Highlands, and I'm there, the light's red, and the fire truck goes, oh, it's green. Oh, pedal to the metal, and I do mean pedal to the metal because I cross the street. I go, oh, and then the light turns red again. I go,
There's a lot of fire stations I've seen where they control the lights.
Yes.
Or they're just blinking yellow and all of a sudden, bam, that thing starts red.
and we noticed that
Better
the
get out
light
the box.
at Station 21 used to have, and the lights are still over Route 50. Did they ever go on, or is those only then when you need them?
So they only come on when they're responding on station. So back to the infrastructure thing. Because technology, the county was growing faster than technology was back then. So us versus Loudoun, I'll compare the two counties. Loudoun County, obviously, being a little younger in the infrastructure, we'll put it that way. When they're adding to, we'll say, Loudoun County Parkway, instead of just having a plane landing on Loudoun County Parkway, as they did the other day, when they put in all those lights on Loudoun County Parkway, they put what's called an Opticom system. That's the system we have in front of Station 15 that controls the lights for emergency vehicles. What that does is we actually have a little strobe that it's really, you can't see it visually, but it's sending a signal to that light saying we're responding and our lights are on. It's only when our lights are on. If we turn it off, we don't get the red light or green light just because we want to get to Chick-fil-A, right? It's only when we have the red lights on. So when Loudoun County expands and they open up Loudoun County Parkway, they installed the lights with the Opticom system already in place. Fast forward to Fairfax County, we already have a lot of traffic lights in place. So money that we've always been asking for and allocating for is continuing to upgrade those as we can. And I know we've gone through some grant programs. Our assistant chief, Chief Walzer, back when he was in my position as battalion chief, that was one of his projects as well. Let's see if we can continue to change out these lights. The more we do that, the better it's going to serve the community from that vantage point. But when you get to gridlock, such as Route 7 and Tyson's, we have to look at alternate ways to handle that.
Yeah, when you were talking about lights, I was only thinking of the ones right there in front of the fire station, because as soon as the fire station opens its doors and lights come on, you see the red lights right there at the street coming on.
Yep. So
I didn't realize that now you had systems that you could advance the lighting
yes.
systems as you're
As
driving.
we're driving down 50, correct. So when you have all these in place, as you're driving down Route 50, if we were able, and when, I'll put as when we're able to have all these at every traffic light, as we're approaching each one of the lights, it will turn green
Yep.
for our direction.
We had heard before the pandemic, or right about the pandemic, VDOT was putting a STARS program in on Route 50. And that STARS program was strategic target reduction of traffic, whatever it is, I don't know the acronym. But they were working from basically Route 28 almost up to Greenbrier to redo the configurations. So it would seem to me that if they're going to redo all these lights to do this thing, they ought to do the Opticon at the same time.
Yes.
That's up to VDOT, not to the county though.
Correct. And again, that's got to be that mutual partnership. So we talked about our partnerships that we have between the different power organizations in the communications. We need to continue to keep those relationships with all of our federal and state partners to that point where when we see, back to our codes enforcement and supporting that portion of it, is, hey, when you're going to update a road, change out a light fixture, what we as Fairfax County would like to see you do is upgrade to this type of feature. And I think that partnership will allow us to continue to move that forward.
Here's two comments from Lewis.
Yes.
Very good presentation and associated discussion. I had a couple of questions which have already been answered in terms of staffing requirements, et cetera. One question for fire and EMS staff. Do you think that the Board of Supervisors truly understands the challenges to your department resulting from all large data centers being constructed in Fairfax and the neighboring counties? Millions of square feet of high voltage computer servers, backup generators with thousands of gallons of fuel, et cetera.
So obviously I can't speak to the Board of Supervisors' knowledge themselves. I'm not privy to all their conversations or even, as you mentioned, about a president knowing about nuclear reactors. Each one of the board members is obviously a very intelligent individual. Each has their own background, how much they've weighed into the data centers, how much research they've done into them specifically. I can't speak of that, but I can tell you that from the fire side, that discussions are ongoing of how is that going to impact the fire response to these facilities. What does that look like for infrastructure? And globally, how are we going to handle these type of incidents? And this is not just Fairfax County's issue, as I mentioned. We just happen to be in the 70 to 80% of the world's internet in this corridor. So a lot of areas are looking to see what are we going to do.
We are the largest concentration of data centers in the entire world.
Well, I mean,
And if you add them all up, and it still doesn't come close. We are the largest consumer of electrical power. Only second to, or we're first, but second is all of China.
but I mean, if you think about it, back in the 70s and 80s, AOL and UUNet, the people who built the internet, had a little, the wires came down this little street in Tyson's. And so now it's just deadheaded, but the wires come here and they continue, but they go down the street and come out. And they moved out to Loudon, to the MCI offices, the WorldCom and AOL, all were in that same corridor now where Wegmans sits, you know.
Yep.
And so the wires go there. So all these people build their data centers here because they know the fastest internet in the world is not too far.
Right. And we, again, back to building that infrastructure. The infrastructure was built with obviously some geniuses out there that figured out, hey, if we put this, it's sort of like Field of Dreams, right? If we build it, they will come. There's definitely some forethought there of if we build it, they will come. So back to your original question about the Board of Supervisors, I would argue our past Board of Supervisors and those tenured that were here in the AOL days for both Fairfax and Loudon, I would say they were ahead of their time in thinking ahead of what is this region going to look like in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. I can tell you, I mean, I've been here in the region for coming up on 28 years. I know you mentioned maybe a little bit longer than that. I'm not sure how long you've been down here, 28 years. When you think about what Route 28 looked like
It was a
28
two-lane
years
road
ago,
in the 90s.
compared to now. So there was a lot of forethought there, and I'm hopeful that there's that kind of forethought going into it now for the future.
I'm not sure.
But that's the optimistic look. The pessimist in me is always concerned about the what if. What if this happens? What if it goes bad? What do we need to do to not only protect the people that work in the data centers, the people that surround the data centers, and quite honestly, globally, what is the impact? Because that is actually part of the training that we do is when I pull the meter on your home, I'm impacting you. And while that's frustrating, you're impacting one resident. When I control the power to a data center warehouse, I'm impacting the world.
But every one of these data centers has a replication process. Data is never sent to a data center.
Right.
It is sent to a family of data centers. When the Treasury Department has its data centers to do all this, there's one in Richmond, there's one in Arlington, Texas, and there's one on the West Coast. That data does not reside in one place. It's sent to all three places. All three places are replicated. And then every night they coordinate to see what they missed. So when you pull the plug on the data center in Virginia, the data is going somewhere else. That night, when it comes back online, it will query its sisters and say, what did I miss? And they will dump everything, and it'll be brought up in a day's time. But the point being is, unplugging a data center doesn't lose any data because that data isn't only there. It's there to service the area that calls on it rather than calling in Arlington, Texas or the West Coast. It's much easier to call the one in Northern Virginia. But that data is elsewhere.
Absolutely.
I mean,
Absolutely.
that's one of the things we got right off the bat.
When you think
It's
about
not
being as big as we are here, how many data centers do you have to replicate everything that's here?
a data center just like it's somewhere else. But my point being, those are interspersed throughout the United States, not concentrated here. Ours might be concentrated in a 10-mile circle. There's Chicago, Illinois, other places in the country, but here they're here.
Right, and you're absolutely right, and it's when talking with obviously your Amazon, we'll use AWS as an example. One of my relatives recently just moved on from AWS, but we're speaking with them. You're right. We as a public would see maybe a blip. The computer flashed for a second. My screen went a little fuzzy for 1 second. We wouldn't even know it. And the whole data center could have been shut down. You're absolutely right. That blip goes away. When I say about controlling, my big concern is it's very difficult to isolate power from these facilities, i.e. a huge hazard for the folks that I'm charged to protect.
And I think of those big fork ships.
Yeah.
It's alive. It's alive. No, never mind.
Yeah, so we the way that we operate these centers, currently is you consider everything's live at all times.
Yeah.
Everything is powered and energized always. And, until basically the man above or whoever you believe in comes down and tells you himself, hey, it's off. You consider it live. So that's, again, going to be a challenge for us to deal with in the event of emergency. And sadly, when do these emergencies happen is usually when they're trying to fix something or replace something. So there's already been an issue that the maintenance individuals are in there working on, or they're in the process of upgrading and something bad happens. So when they're working, it's like a computer. When it's working, everything's perfect. It's when things go wrong that we have to prepare for, and that's why my job is solely on what do you do if. The what if is what keeps me up at night every day.
Has anybody ever said anything about EMP?
Yes.
Track magnetic pulse?
Yes.
Yeah. I mentioned that in our discussions with these data centers, and they don't have answers for that.
Yeah. And again, it's one of those where
It's a threat beyond anything we can ever think of.
Yeah, there's you can get into the sci-fi things, and it's sort of like, yes, these things are available, and yes, is it a concern? All of that stuff has to be a concern, and just the Department of Homeland Security, that's their job is what if. What if this occurs? What if that? Everything's a what if. It's just a matter of how do we deal with it at our level. So my biggest concern is how do I make sure the citizens of Fairfax County are safe in the event of a what if?
Well, thank you for that. Glad somebody's thinking about it.
It doesn't mean I have all the answers.
Well, I'm
but
not thinking about
we're-
it.
yeah, we're-
Glad somebody's even thinking about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
The best part of it is just raising a question.
Yes, you're absolutely
And
right.
be thinking to others.
Which is why I always love asking the questions, because, clearly, if there's something on your mind, I want to make sure that if I haven't, heard of it or haven't addressed it in some way or another, I want to research it. I'll find it.
Okay. I have one thing to tell you, but give me 5 minutes to end the full meeting.
Yes.
And then we'll go back.
Yes.
Okay? So folks want to report what the Joint Sully District Land Use Committee did on the 15th of January, a week ago Monday. We had the A-gap rezoning and special exception. The committee indicated they had several objections to the proposal and asked the proponents to respond to the concerns. We did get the responses, but most of these questions we had were more relevant to the rezoning, not to the plan amendment, which they had no objection. And I spoke to that matter at the BOS plan amendment that was discussed yesterday. The casino referendum, we sent out a resolution. It's been widely received, and we got comments from other organizations thanking us for our position. The Chantilly Premier, I spoke to our opposition, and here's the testimony. So if you go to the doc, to our minutes, you'll see that the position's there. I want to remind people that the Fairfax Federation is still seeking nominations for the Citizen of the Year. That will go until the 31st of this month. Next month, on our Sully District Council meeting, our featured speaker is Transportation Advisory Commissioner Karen Camplin, and we'll also hear about the comprehensive plan amendment for housing and land use elements of the policy plan. And because our meeting is on Monday next month for the land use meeting, our featured speaker is Sully Planning Commissioner Evelyn Spain, who can make it on a Monday, but not on a Wednesday, because that's when the Planning Commission meets. So that's what our schedule looks like for February. Be aware, 19th and 28th. And I am going to declare that this part of the meeting is formally over. And so I'm going to click on stop sharing. And Louis, do you have any other comments before we finalize the meeting? Looking for Louis. For some reason, Louis can hear us, but he can't speak. We can't hear it. And I've committed to Louis that I will go to his house and we will work out his technical issues on his computer.
Well, I will apologize directly then to Louis, because clearly, Louis, you've heard me speaking way too much tonight. And I apologize for that.
No, not a problem.
And I will be a much better listener next time.
I will tell you, this is probably one of the more informative discussions we've had, more